Imagine a dimly lit workshop in the heart of Ouagadougou, where shafts of dusty light slice through narrow windows onto an array of half-finished electric vehicles. The air hums with the soft whir of power tools and the rhythmic tap of welders, shaping steel. Yet amid this industrial ballet there is a hush, a sense that something extraordinary is unfolding beneath the radar. What if the poorest nation on Earth, long defined by conflict and scarcity, had quietly assembled the building blocks of tomorrow's technology? What if the very leader you've never heard of has been slipping into these garages in plain clothes, listening intently and guiding every bolt and circuit with a vision that defies every expectation? This is not fiction. This is the hidden story of Burkina Faso's tech resurrection, and it begins with a man in uniform who refused to accept the limits imposed by history. It all started in early 2023, when the world's media barely glanced. At a modest ceremony in the capital, a handful of foreign reporters, more curious than convinced, watched as a sleek, locally assembled electric car rolled off its makeshift production line. No pomp, no fanfare, just the quiet pride of Burkina Faso. Engineers who had scavenged parts from decommissioned buses and repurposed smartphone batteries. Yet beneath that unspectacular moment lay a seismic shift. The first homemade electric car produced by a nation under sanctions and besieged by insecurity. And standing just out of frame, observing with a calm intensity, was Captain Ibrahim Traore, the man orchestrating every detail of this under-the-radar revolution. He wore no badge that day, no press credentials, only a well-worn polo shirt and the unshakable belief that African ingenuity could outmatch any foreign investment. As the prototype cruised through dusty streets, the real story remained concealed. The identity of the force turning theoretical blueprints into roaring engines. Who was this Incognito CEO, slipping into university workshops at dawn and retreating before anyone could recognize his face? How did a career soldier transform into a champion of local innovation, convincing skeptical engineers to dream bigger than imported aid ever allowed? In the coming chapters, you will hear secret testimonies from young inventors who thought they were designing apps and drones on their own, only to discover they were collaborating directly with the nation's commander-in-chief. You will follow the electric car's journey from humble test track to international headlines, and you will witness the spark that ignited a surge of armored vehicles and tactical drones built entirely in West Africa. By the end of this introduction, you'll realize that Burkina Faso's ascent is not an anomaly. It is a blueprint for every emerging economy ready to challenge global narratives of dependency. Questions will crowd your mind. What unseen barriers have been shattered? Which neighboring capitals will scramble to replicate this model? And most importantly, what comes next when the world finally turns its gaze toward this silent revolution? Stay with us, because the hidden hands that built an electric car are already crafting drones, designing armored carriers, and redefining what leadership can achieve when it chooses to trust its people. The story of a soldier turned CEO is just beginning, and you're about to witness how one nation's quiet ambition can echo across an entire continent. Captain Ibrahim Traore stepped through the unmarked door of the nondescript workshop just before dawn, swapping his crisp uniform for a grease-stained boiler suit and securing a pair of safety goggles over his eyes. No press badges dangled from his neck, no camera crew hovered for wide shots, only the low hum of fluorescent lights and the distant clatter of tools. In that moment, he was indistinguishable from any other mechanic or engineer in the bay. As he moved among the workbenches cluttered with wiring looms and battery cells, the young technicians glanced briefly at the newcomer, but returned to their tasks, assuming he was a visiting specialist or a consultant brought in by their government supervisors. This was exactly how Traore wanted it: unseen, unannounced, entirely under the radar. The true power of his mission lay in the raw authenticity of participation. He would learn firsthand the hopes, frustrations, and ingenuity of the very people building Burkina Faso's first electric car. As the morning light filtered through high windows, he joined a small team gathered around the chassis of the prototype vehicle. No one spoke his name. No one sought permission to address him as captain. Instead, they reserved their cautious optimism for each other, comparing notes on motor torque and battery efficiency. First thing, he listened. A tall engineer adjusted wiring on the controller module and muttered, If we can get this dialed in, we'll rival some of the smaller European models. Nearby, a young woman leaned over a laptop screen displaying energy consumption graphs. We calculated a potential range of 180 kilometers on a single charge, she said quietly, more to herself than to the group. Elsewhere, an intern nervously ran simulations on suspension dynamics, hoping his internship would lead to something more than coffee runs. These were the real faces of innovation. Brilliant minds accustomed to working with limited resources, driven by the conviction that Burkina Faso could create its own future. Traore lingered near a workbench where an engineer was soldering a battery management board. He asked about sourcing for the lithium modules. The engineer glanced up, surprised by the question's depth. "We repurpose old telecom batteries," he confessed, eyes lighting up. "It's scavenged, but the cells still have 70% capacity. We're designing a custom balancing circuit to extend lifespan." Traore nodded thoughtfully, jotting a note in a small notebook hidden in his pocket. He inquired about the cost per unit, the safety protocols, the challenges of thermal management in hot climates. Questions no outsider had ever bothered to ask. Every answer revealed both brilliance and vulnerability. Brilliant because the solutions were elegant, vulnerability because one faulty weld or a miscalibrated sensor could end the project before it reached the road. As midday approached, the TI team moved the vehicle onto a makeshift test track beyond the workshop's metal roll-up door. Local mechanics watched from the sidelines, casting skeptical glances at the patched-together machine. Data recorders clicked on, and with a soft whir, the electric car glided forward. On the bench, engineers monitored voltage curves and temperature readings. The under-the-hood innovations were nothing short of remarkable. A repurposed direct-drive hub motor salvaged from a decommissioned city bus, an adaptive regenerative braking system coded in-house to suit rugged terrain, and a lightweight chassis, constructed from locally sourced bamboo composites reinforced with fiberglass. Each component told a story of resourcefulness, no expensive imports, just homegrown creativity. Back in the garage, Traore watched from the shadows as technicians exchanged triumphal grins. Their earlier doubts about funding, about national prioritization, about the feasibility of African-made tech melted away with each successful lap. One engineer rubbed his forearm reflectively and said, "Who would have thought we'd see, this day, a car built by Burkina Faso hands?" Another chimed in, voice thick with emotion. "It's more than transport. It's our statement to the world. We can innovate, and we can lead." At that moment, Traore realized that the real achievement was not the car itself, but the collective shift in mindset. These engineers were no longer chasing foreign approval. They were architects of their own destiny. Later, as the team cleaned up, Traore removed his goggles and approached the group. He cleared his throat softly. The workshop fell silent. Masks of concentration and camaraderie shifted into puzzled smiles. One technician asked, "Boss, is everything okay?" Another muttered, "You've been asking all the right questions. Who sent you again?" With a steady voice, Traore revealed his rank, his role as head of state, and his personal commitment to nurturing Burkina Faso's technological sovereignty. Gasps echoed off concrete walls. Tools clattered to the floor. The same faces that once treated him like just another visitor now stared in disbelief, eyes wide as they processed the truth. The quiet man in overalls was the country's commander-in-chief, and the visionary funding every step of their work. In that electric moment, the emotional intensity skyrocketed. Tears, laughter, incredulous shakes of the head. Senior engineers who had resigned themselves to government directives handed down from distant offices found themselves face to face with a leader who had walked in their shoes, shoulder to shoulder. One veteran tech lead grasped Traore's hands and said, "You believed in us even when no one else would." A young intern whispered, voice trembling, "We thought we were just building cars. We didn't know we were building our nation's future." This authenticity, the raw, unscripted interaction, became the true reveal, eclipsing any PR camera or staged announcement. But even as the workshop buzzed with excitement, unspoken, questions lingered in the air. What will happen when this story gets out? Will skeptics dismiss it as a one-off stunt, Or will global markets take notice of homegrown African innovation? How far can Burkina Faso push local resources before the EU strain becomes unsustainable? And crucially, what other breakthroughs lie hidden in garages, university labs, and backyard workshops across the nation, waiting for their moment in the sun? As Traore walked away from the assembly line, disappearing into the afternoon heat, he left behind more than a prototype electric car. He left a spark that would ignite an entire continent's imagination. The real journey had only just begun, and the next chapter promised even greater revelations. What will they build next? And how will the world react when Burkina Faso's quiet revolution becomes impossible to ignore? As dawn breaks over the red clay plains of Ouagadougou, the rhythm of progression hums louder than ever. Cut to a rapid-fire montage. Electric cars gliding along dusty streets, camera drones buzzing overhead on reconnaissance sorties, and rows of newly minted armored vehicles gleaming beneath a rising sun. Each clip accelerates the pulse, carrying you from the humble garage where a single prototype first rolled out, to the expansive government showcase where steel beasts, draped in Burkina Faso's red, green, and gold, stand ready for deployment. This is the transition. The moment when a fledgling electric car project evolves into a full-scale military innovation enterprise, and when the world begins to realize that Burkina Faso is writing its own technological script behind an unassuming military drones, design origins, and first field tests behind every eye in the sky, beats the heart of a battlefield revolution. The drone initiative began 6 months after the electric car debut, sparked by a desperate need to monitor remote border regions plagued by insecurity. Traore, still operating Incognito, convened a small team of aerospace-minded engineers in a rented hangar. There they cobbled together the first prototype from surplus parts. Brushless motors scavenged from fishing boats, carbon fiber propellers reverse-engineered from hobbyist kits, and open-source flight controllers reprogrammed to withstand extreme heat and dust. The air was thick with skepticism. Could a landlocked, resource-strapped nation truly master aerial warfare technology? Yet on the day of the first test flight, engineers watched in awe as the quadcopter lifted off a makeshift runway, maintaining perfect stability while streaming live video back to a rugged laptop buried under sandbags. That moment marked the birth of the Burkina Faso Skyguard program, a grassroots alternative to imported military hardware, proving that ingenuity powered by necessity can outmaneuver the highest budget contractors. Data from the maiden flight revealed more than just technical viability. It unveiled the collective pride of a people reclaiming their skies. "We never imagined we'd be watching our own drones patrol our borders," whispered one technician, his voice cracking with emotion. Another, wiping tears as he reviewed thermal imaging footage, said, "It's not just surveillance, it's sovereignty in motion." These early trials laid the groundwork for a fleet of specialized models, reconnaissance drones with extended battery life, armed variants capable of precision payload delivery, and even hybrid prototypes designed to carry medical supplies into inaccessible villages. Each iteration pushed the boundaries further, demonstrating that the true payload of these flying machines was hope that local talent could overcome decades of dependency and deliver real-world solutions under homegrown command. Armored vehicles, symbolism of national flags on steel. While the skies opened a new frontier, the ground demanded equal innovation. 1 year after the electric car's quiet debut, Burkina Faso unveiled its first domestically built armored personnel carrier. The ceremony took place in the capital's parade square, where rows of soldiers flanked a monstrous steel hull adorned, not with generic military insignia, but with the unmistakable stripes of the national flag. The symbolism was deliberate. These were vehicles born of Burkinabe hands for Burkinabe missions. Under the hood lay a diesel-electric hybrid powertrain adapted from agricultural tractors, delivering both reliability in rugged terrain and reduced thermal signatures for nighttime operations. The chassis, welded together in a converted warehouse, incorporated locally sourced steel, reinforced with ceramic plates scavenged from decommissioned industry equipment. As the vehicle rumbled forward, kicking up clouds of ochre dust, the crowd erupted in cheers. Veteran soldiers and young recruits alike stared in disbelief at a technology they had long relied on foreign partners to supply. "This steel carries our history," proclaimed one lieutenant, tears glinting in his eyes as he ran a hand across the painted flag. "Every bolt, every weld, our hands shaped this armor." For the engineering team, many of whom had struggled to source materials on shoestring budgets, the sight was surreal. One project lead, voice thick with pride, recounted, "When we first sketched blueprints on napkins, no one believed it would become real. Today, what we built stands between our people and insecurity." That armored vehicle, once a daydream scribbled on workshop walls, had become a rolling testament to self-reliance and national dignity. Undercover reveal, the moment engineers discovered Traore's identity behind this cascade of breakthroughs. Captain Traore maintained his undercover presence, slipping seamlessly between the roles of observer, mentor, and collaborator. Yet the true crescendo arrived during a late-night test of the new drone and armor integration exercise. A group of senior engineers gathered in the control tent, worn from months of relentless prototyping. When the tent flap parted and the figure in overalls entered without ceremony, the team braced for an uninspiring technical inspection, unaware that they were moments away from a revelation that would etch itself into their memories forever. Traore paused under the harsh glare of floodlights, then slowly removed his welding mask. The collective intake of breath was audible. Jackets rustled, chairs scraped, and eyes widened in astonished recognition. "I am Captain Ibrahim Traore," he announced in a steady voice that carried both command and genuine warmth. "I have walked these floors, shared your doubts, and celebrated your victories. I believe in your talent, and together we will reshape our nation's future." For a suspended second, silence reigned. Then one engineer, shaking his head in disbelief, stumbled forward and embraced the man he had treated as a peer just moments before. "You've risked everything with us," he whispered. "You never asked for credit. You only asked for results." The tent erupted in cheers and tears, forging a bond of trust stronger than any contract or public statement. Audience. Engagement. Rhetorical questions. At this juncture, it's impossible not to ask, could this same model work in America or Europe? What if a Fortune 500 CEO exchanged boardrooms for back-alley workshops, listening unfiltered to the dreams and frustrations of entry-level engineers? How transformative might supply chains become if local talent were empowered instead of outsourced? Will other nations adapt this blueprint, or will global powers scramble to suppress a narrative that undermines conventional dominance? Viral trigger. Emotional first-hand quotes from young creators. The human faces behind these innovations carry stories that resonate far beyond West Africa's borders. "When I first joined, I thought we'd be tweaking existing designs. I never expected to be defining new ones," confessed Aisha, a lead drone programmer whose code now pilots aerial missions across the country. "I told myself, if a girl from Ouagadougou can write flight control algorithms, then my dreams have no limits." Meanwhile, Ibrahim, a former civil servant turned armored vehicle engineer, shared, "I used to submit budgets for foreign purchases. Now I submit plans to build our own. It's a shift from dependency to empowerment, one I never saw coming." These voices ignite a spark of collective possibility. Listeners around the world find themselves moved by Aisha's courage, by Ibrahim's conviction, by the image of national flags painted on steel. Videos of the reveal ceremony circulate across social platforms, tagged with Yurner Undercover CEO, Euro Africa Innovates, and Yurner Burkina Rise, challenging stereotypes and rewriting expectations. View counts skyrocket as viewers comment. "This gives me chills. It's what happened when leaders believe in their people. And imagine if every country did this. We'd see a global innovation tsunami." Behind the curtain, then, lies not just the technical brilliance of electric cars, drones, and armored vehicles, but the profound psychology of leadership that values authenticity over optics. Captain Traore's Incognito missions shattered hierarchies, fostered genuine collaboration, and unlocked reservoirs of talent that had long been ignored. As this saga unfolds, one truth emerges unambiguously. When trust is placed in grassroots ingenuity, the only limit is the scope of collective imagination. The next chapter will take us deeper into the ripple effects of these breakthroughs. How media silence was shattered, how neighboring governments scrambled to emulate or co-opt this model, and how, in quiet workshops across Africa, new prototypes await their moment in the sun. What will follow when a continent-wide network of innovators stands shoulder to shoulder with their leaders? The revolution is no longer hidden. It has broken through the curtain, and the world is watching. When Captain Ibrahim Traore stepped onto the stage of the University of Ouagadougou's Grand Auditorium, the lights dimmed, and a single spotlight illuminated his silhouette. Behind him, a sprawling screen displayed a montage of electric cars, zipping down dusty boulevards, drones humming over border posts, and armored vehicles bearing Burkina Faso's flag. In a voice both solemn and resolute, he addressed the nation's innovators. "We have proven that scarcity is not our destiny. Today, I call on every university, every garage workshop, and every fledgling startup to join this revolution. We will fund your research, equip your labs, and mentor your teams. No idea is too small, no engineer too inexperienced. This is our blueprint for Africa's future, built by our hands, powered by our ingenuity, and defended by our spirit." His words reverberated through the hall, igniting a spark of possibility in the hearts of hundreds of students and technicians who had long struggled for resources and recognition. That night, promises were made. New grants for prototype development, campus incubators dedicated to hardware innovation, and mobile maker buses dispatched to remote villages. With Traore's personal endorsement and the government's guarantee of logistical support. Almost overnight, the blueprint took shape in unexpected places. In a converted shipping container on the outskirts of Bobo Dioulasso, a team of young engineers unveiled a solar-powered irrigation prototype capable of delivering precise water volumes to smallholder farms. Next door, an app incubator hosted hackathons where coders developed mobile platforms to connect artisans with global markets. In university garages, students assembled farming drones equipped with multispectral cameras to monitor crop health and soil moisture, tools previously available only through expensive foreign contracts. Even more remarkable, a collective of high school tinkerers launched a drone library, lending aerial units to neighboring communities for disaster relief exercises. Each case study underscored Traore's vision: empower the youth, then step back and watch them flourish. In labs and workshops across Burkina Faso, innovation was no longer a buzzword but an everyday reality, etched into the code of each app and welded into the frame of every drone. But this shift did not remain confined within national borders. As news of Burkina Faso's homegrown breakthroughs spread quietly through academic networks and diaspora forums, engineers and policymakers in Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria began emulating the model. In Accra, Ghanaian researchers repurposed abandoned gold mining sensors to develop portable environmental monitoring stations, inspired directly by Burkina's resource-scarce innovation labs. Nairobi's tech hubs launched Garage to Global accelerators, offering seed funding to agritech ventures modeled on Burkina Faso's farming drone program. In Lagos, a coalition of young designers reverse-engineered the electric car blueprint to create rugged electric motorcycles tailored for urban commuters. Conferences once dominated by multinational corporations now featured panels on African self-reliance, with Burkina Faso repeatedly cited as the blueprint exemplar. These ripple effects demonstrated that when one nation defies expectations, its neighbors cannot help but take notice and, in doing so, chart their own courses toward technological sovereignty. Despite the groundswell of grassroots momentum, mainstream media remained remarkably silent. While global headlines fixated on conflict and humanitarian crises, little was said of the garages where tomorrow's breakthroughs were taking root. International news networks aired segments on Western startups launching yet another tech for good program in Africa, yet glossed over the fact that Burkina Faso had built operational armored vehicles and surveillance drones without foreign blueprints. This gulf between media narratives and on-the-ground reality fueled local determination. If the world refused to acknowledge their achievements, then the innovators would speak for themselves. Social media campaigns under hashtags like #Africa Builds Itself and Burkina Blueprint trended across the continent, sharing videos of prototype unveilings and engineer testimonials. Pop-up exhibitions in Abidjan and Dakar showcased solar panel assemblies and autonomous irrigation rigs, each labeled "Inspired" by Burkina Faso's hidden revolution. The dichotomy was stark. Global silence versus continental celebration, top-down apathy versus bottom-up pride. Amid this unfolding drama, one moment captured the emotional core of the revolution. In a modest workshop lit by a single fluorescent tube, a teenage inventor named Adama stood before a camera phone, tears brimming in his eyes. He had just completed a solar-powered water purification unit using recycled vehicle radiators and locally cast filtration media. As the first drop of clean water dripped into a waiting glass, Adama whispered, "I built this with my own hands. No foreign parts, no outside experts. I did it." That raw, aha moment, shared by thousands online, crystallized the movement's essence. Empowerment is not just technical competence, but the pride of creation. Viewers paused mid-scroll, struck by the authenticity of a young African mind forging solutions to real problems. Comments flooded in. "This is why I believe, and our future is in their hands." And so the share-worthy moment arrived, a call to every viewer, every skeptic, every leader. If one man in uniform could spark this revolution in Burkina Faso, imagine what happens next when dozens, then hundreds of nations embrace the same creed of self-determination. If a soldier-turned-CEO could trust garages and university labs to build armored vehicles and drones, what might entrepreneurs build in Detroit, Bangalore, or São Paulo when given similar freedom? Could this blueprint redefine the global tech landscape, shifting its center from Silicon Valley to a network of grassroots innovators? The answers lie in the next unfolding chapters of Africa's story, chapters still being written in dusty workshops, online forums, and classrooms where the next generation of creators is discovering that they hold the blueprint to a new era. When youth are empowered, expectations are defied, and the world watches in disbelief, the true revolution begins. As the sun sets across Burkina Faso's horizon, let us pull back and reflect on the journey we've shared. We began in a shadowed garage where Captain Ibrahim Traore slipped in undercover, listening as young engineers whispered breakthroughs over soldering irons. We witnessed the first electric car prototype glide past skeptical neighbors, its bamboo composite chassis and repurposed bus motor signaling a new era of resourcefulness. From there, we soared with homemade drones that patrolled borderlands and rumbled beside armored personnel carriers bearing Burkina Faso's flag, steel behemoths welded together by the very hands they now protect. We watched the moment of stunning revelation when engineers realized their anonymous colleague was their nation's leader, and we felt the collective gasp that followed. Young innovators like Aisha and Adama emerged with tears and triumphant laughter, their aha moments illuminating workshops and social feeds alike. Each scene added a thread to a tapestry of ingenuity, unity, and hard-won pride, a tapestry still being woven today. Now, this is where you come in. Share this story with anyone who needs a reminder that audacious dreams can become reality when leaders trust their people. Tag a friend who believes in grassroots innovation, or someone questioning whether real change is possible. Let this epilogue be a rallying cry, echoing far beyond Ouagadougou's dusty streets and into digital communities worldwide. To the decision-makers across Africa, the blueprint stands before you. Will you step up next? Will you fund that garage, lab, greenlight that solar prototype team, or give a young programmer the resources to launch the next game-changing app? The choice is yours, and history will judge how boldly you act. But our tale is far from complete. In Part 2, prepare to witness an even more dramatic chapter, how Traore's drones changed a simmering border conflict, reshaping regional dynamics overnight, and what happens when global powers finally awaken to a self-reliant Africa. Will they seek collaboration, attempt to co-opt these homegrown technologies, or scramble to suppress a narrative that undermines established hierarchies? So stay tuned. Subscribe now, because the best is yet to come. You've seen the hidden gears of innovation turn. Next, you'll see their impact ripple outward in ways no one foresaw. Remember this final thought. When one nation rises beneath the radar, the world will have no choice but to watch. And once you've shared this story, every overlooked garage and every determined youth will know that their moment to reshape the future is just beginning.